Hello everyone, I Radhika Khurana welcome you to yet another episode of Lawyer Speaks presented to you by Law Community, wherein we invite brilliant minds of legal fraternity so that you get to peek into their lives and get to know their stories. And today we have with us Advocate Sankalp Malik, Associate RRA Legal with keen interest in income tax laws, criminal laws, PMLA and arbitration. So my first question to you is what inspired you to do law?
Okay, so that is a very deep question. But firstly, I am a fourth generation lawyer. But I started with that because that was not the motivation behind it. I remember when I was in school, I used to come back to my father and my grandfather's office, and that time I didn't really understand the thing about it. But today, when I look back, there is a memory which I have, a very vivid memory of being in my grandfather's chambers and looking at him so seriously giving the dictation, which I now realize the worth of it. Being a lawyer, I realize what's the meaning of that real profession and how it goes about. So I think those things inculcated the value and the interest in me, the spark to be a lawyer, and that happened. Then I think law school came in when I really understood that what is there to what is the real thing which the profession has to offer. I took a part in a lot of moot court competitions, wrote a lot of research papers, and with time reading about law, I got connected with law, seeing the things that how law impacts everything. Today we're standing in a lockdown. It is just one notification because of which we're not allowed to go. Keep aside the COVID part, but it is that one notification, that power of law through the constitution, which actually restricts or provides us to do something, is the power of law. And that really interests me.
Okay, that was one very interesting answer. So, how was your law school experience like?
I graduated from Amity Law School, Noida, which is a private university. When I joined law school, I was really aware, like I'd done my homework as to what's to be done in a law school, moots, research papers. I mean, going out on summer school, I was all prepared with that, what to do. When I came into law school, I realized, oh, nobody here cares about that in my law school. The teachers don't care about that. The students don't. And 90% of the people that time when I started were people who didn't want to do law. They were from business background and stuff. But somewhere along the line, I remember that law school is meant to make you think like a lawyer. And more than that, it is your duty to flower yourself, to nurture yourself. So I remember I used to like slog around, go around seniors, ask them, bhaiya, tell me who is a good mooter and all that. After a year, I found two people. We started mooting. I learned from them. Then I did that all by myself, and I learned a little nitty gritty about researching, drafting, and that is what it is. All these experiences, the moots, the research papers, the extracurricular activities, all these activities all together come in, they hone your skills. I am a lawyer today, but that is what the starting point was when I think about drafting. A very basic thing is I think all these parts which together sum up and prove to be something big. So that was my law school experience.
So, what advice would you like to give to the students who are right now studying law, who are in their law school right now, regarding mooting and regarding research papers? What are the important tips that you would like to suggest them?
Regarding mooting and regarding research, I wouldn't restrict my answer to that. I would go a little further if you may allow me the leave to do so. Um, be perseverant, be passionate, make the most of your time. I mean, it's not just about writing a research paper or doing a moot. It definitely adds up to your CV, but at the end of the day, you want to be a capable professional. For that, what you need to do is a lot of things. Firstly, writing, like first point being research papers. What writing helps you do is It lets you understand what kind of subjects really interest you, what are the latest laws or the legal precedents which are there, and you get an idea as to how to think about it. When you read something, read the history of it, how did the law come into place, then what was the development of the law, then where does it stand today. You see a demographic, and then you have to think about it. And it's all about the creativity which builds in it, because you're there. A few years later, you will be standing before a court having, you won't know how, but a question of law, something like that. And you will have to think of an answer. And because of all these things that you've done, you will be able to get an answer so different and so distinct, but at the same time, so connected with the legal precedent that you yourself will feel great. So I think that's the first point which I'd say. Secondly, be perseverant. Like I said, I would like to share one of my experiences. Like coming from a family of lawyers, I always restricted to take help or be like show, oh, I come from a family of lawyers. So I remember I was in my third year of law school. It was December, I think. My externals were going on, and I was always into getting a path as to what I want to do in the future. I knew litigation, but I wanted to see which area of law do I really, what area of law really excites me, because the profession is such that I believe it's got opportunities for everybody. So I remember I went to Vadwala Chambers. I did not have an internship, and I had applied there earlier. They gave me an internship, but because of my law school timings and my schedule, I could not continue with the internship that time, which was given to me. So December I went there. I think it was the 2nd of December 2017, I believe, if I'm not wrong. And I sat there for 5 hours. The lawyer probably saw that, oh yes, this kid is there. He's waiting there for 4 hours, 5 hours. Mr. Anirudh Vadwa, who came out, he saw me, he saw my CV, asked me 2, 3 questions, which luckily I was able to answer. I thank my stars for that. And I was there. I started working. And I also remember my exams were going on, like I told you. Uh, and it was, I think, the last or the second last week in that very internship when I was given a case to work upon. It was a criminal matter which was done by his brother Aditya Vadva, who's also a very learned and a renowned criminal advocate. So I only had to prepare a list of dates in that matter. And it was just a very tiny, teeny tiny file. I thought, oh, what, it's 7 o'clock in the evening. I'm going to take an off tomorrow because I have an exam on Saturday. But it's a teeny tiny file. I'll be able to do it in an hour. Doesn't matter. And I was always, work, get as much experience as possible. So that was the driving force. But little did I know that the whole file was in Hindi. And that was my first experience of doing something like that. I had to prepare a list of dates, and Sir knew that I had an exam. He told me if you're unable to do it, if it's taking a lot of time and you need to study, you go take and give it to somebody else, give it to somebody else, or XYZ. I stayed there in the office till 8:45 in the morning the next day, prepared a list of dates, and gave a point that, sir, it was a case of a seizure where the police had gone, they'd investigated, they'd put on a raid, and then they had found certain incriminating material which they wanted to find because of an anonymous tip which they had received. So one thing which I found in that case was that there were no independent witnesses, which is a binding precedent of CRPC. So that the police cannot plant evidence in that case. Basically, that's the rationale of that law. And I told sir about that. The man was really impressed because looking back, I understand that I went a step further than what was asked of me to do. So I think with your passion, with your perseverance, it is our stage not to look and think about what is going to come in the future, but to live in the present and do more than which is asked to do. Not only somebody else gains out of it, it is us who learn, who see and who really understand the facets of how it will go. Then you see a lawyer working on it. And Monday when I went there, it was a bail hearing. So it took me, let's go, let's see how it is done. What you've done, I'll show you. What's the result of that? And we got the person the bail only because of that simple thing. And it was a wonderful experience. So cumulatively, I would say these things, and you need to make the most of your law school experience. Coming back to writing, it helps you really gather your thoughts. It helps you hone your drafting skills. So all in all, I think these factors cumulatively form a point that you utilize your time in law school concisely. Enjoy, but at the same time, you manage it and make it efficient, is what I'd say.
So, what advice would you like to give to the students, like how to plan their internships? Like, is there a certain way, like first district court, and then you should go for corporate, or other areas that law has to offer, or just unanimously whatever a person gets? Because not everybody has a choice, so that they can select what internship they want to do. So, how would you suggest, like, what would you advise them, like, how should they plan their internships?
All right. Regarding that, I would just say that if you're in a 5 year law school, if you're in a 5 year law school, you should, from the very first year end, you should first of all seek help. Like, just know what law is what. Where does contract law come into play? So in the first year, you've just learned contracts, you know what is a voidable contract, and you're harping on it. Second year, you come in, you learn about IPC, CRPC, which is very relatable because we've all seen murders in movies and everything. What happens is that you should be diligent towards knowing and starting somewhere. For example, if you start with criminal, you give it time, you see arbitration, you do a couple of other internships. First of all, do internships at different places, which I would say that is what I did. Like a couple of civil internships, a couple of criminal internships, one or two arbitration internships, which gave me a background of as to what is to be done, like what kind of work is done everywhere. It made me realize what are the common points and what are the distinctions in practice. What kind of law requires you to do what? It gives you a glimpse of that. With that, you get to know about your interests. And when you have that, you can, in your law school time, you can moot in that specific field. If you, for example, if you've light criminal law, you can start with mooting into a trial advocacy. You can start with a trial advocacy competition, which will give you a thrill of how to examine and cross-examine a witness, which itself is a different feeling altogether. Now, coming to your main question, how to start with your internships. I believe it is futile to start with an appellate court like the High Court or the Supreme Court, though it's really fancy. The cold coffee is amazing. I know that. But at the same time, you're there to learn something, and you cannot lose the thought of that point. You're there to learn, and you have to start with the trial court internship because that is the, like, whenever a junior comes to me, I tell them that the High Court and the Supreme Court, I start with this thing only, that the High Court and the Supreme Court are court of law. Only questions of law are going to be argued over there. But facts, that is what matter. Like what facts, once they're made in the trial court, 99% of them they're done. You cannot change the facts and how to alter with the facts. Ram Jethmalani was a great lawyer because he knew how to interplay with the facts. If you see a great lawyer, Harish Salve in tax matters, he knows what is the integrity of tax. He knows where certain things were gone wrong because he knows the basic foundational principles. And until your foundation is wrong, I believe, or you're not strong with it, I think you can have a great practice in the appellate courts. But law, as like how personally I feel about law, the passion doesn't really come from it. So you definitely should start from the trial courts. Like I have just been into the profession a year and a half now, and it's been a great journey. But I have only done like I only practice in the tribunals, in the lower courts, a little bit in the high court. It definitely is a thrill. Learning the fact finding, it gives me a better understanding as to what happens as to a question of law. Because there's a very, like, you have to understand that there's a very limited scope in a question of law. And it has to come later on when you know about the facts, you know about the law, how the law has come into place, what generally is the demographics of the facts which are being dealt with in the court, because the aspect of the court is also very different, and realizing and understanding that can only be given properly, can only be understood properly once you have a good experience in the trial.
So, how did you strategize your professional development after law school?
Purely, like, I work at RRA Legal. It's a purely litigation firm. They practice in the economic laws. And to be honest, it's not really what I planned, because my family has been into income tax. And I was always very anti, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do the same thing. I have to do my own thing. I have to be different or whatever. It happened in the fourth year when I was done with my criminal internships. I was sure that I'm going to join a chamber where there is criminal work and there is a little bit of arbitrational work. And I had pinpointed lawyers whom I wanted to work with also back in the fourth year, starting of the fourth year itself. But what happened was that's also a very great story. My father just asked me to work on a couple of tax matters. He gave me a two, three cases that these are the matters which are coming up. Prepare these cases. I want to see what you've learned in law school. Okay, so I was like, I took it as a competition, and let's see what can I do. And I worked on those matters. Those were reassessment matters, and it came out that I was like, this interests me a lot. There was a different kind of a click which I felt in income tax, and I was really anti, or really, I think, under a I didn't understand it properly, that it would be a lot of accountancy and it would be a lot of numbers in tax, which I thought, which it wasn't. It was also pure law, rather, it was a little stricter law. It is a rather stricter and a more harsher, a more narrower law. A little bit of understanding in accountancy is required, but it comes back and forth. You can ask around, Google is there, and you only have to help yourself, no matter what your question in law may be. So I took those cases, it really interested me. Then I worked in tax matters. I thought it's my fifth year. I know criminal is there, but I think I should give it a shot. So fifth year, I in my fifth year, I worked at tax chambers like Vash Associates, under senior standing counsel of the income tax department, from under whom I also got a PPO after my fifth year. But I again wanted to start with the trial court, like I said. So I didn't start with the High Court practice and the Supreme Court practice. This RRA Legal was the place where they have a niche and a standing pan India for tax matters, for Benami matters, for PMLA matters, and black money matters. I started with the income tax, learning how income tax works in the tribunals, and I'm really happy where I am. And I would like to correct you: it's not a corporate firm; it's a completely litigation firm, but in a structure of a firm, which I think, in hindsight, has helped me in both my agendas, and that is how it's been.
So my next question is, how did you like? You just mentioned regarding the tax law. So right now you're working in that field. So how has your experience been at RRA Legal?
The experiences, see, as a young person, it's as a young person who's just joined the bar, everything is very glittery and glamoury. You see one good argument, you go to meet the client, big short clients, I would not like to name them, and meetings at swanky places, then coming back, grinding yourself, having sleepless nights. All these are experiences, and I believe it's going great, because as a place, as an office, I think it is giving me the opportunity to have the freedom to work as myself, having the freedom to take care of the case without being just too oppressive. But there is a great overview, like somebody just if there is something, I know there are people who help. Like it might not be very relatable. You might be thinking I'm there, but having an independent self or working in a case when you just a year into law, and then with even the slightest and the smallest of the problem, having somebody to guide you through, which I think there in the offices, but getting such good opportunities is something which I'm blessed to have. So it's a great experience like that in those aspects.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time. We wish you all the best for a healthy future and may you reach more heights and success.